Kick things off, Leanne, with a bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Leanne Altmann, and I've been a sommelier for, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you how long, gives the game away.
Don't be silly.
I suppose all of my experience working with wine has come from a restaurant perspective. So it's really interesting for me to think about the application of wine, why people drink things, what they want to drink them with, and who they want to celebrate with. So that's one of the reasons, some of the inspiration behind these wines that we'll look at today.
Amazing. You are a bit of a very hotly contested asset in the Melbourne wine scene. No, you definitely are. Your restaurants, the restaurants you work for, are incredible, and your wine lists are incredible. In terms of the wine that you've picked out for us today, what drew you to these bottles? What was the thinking behind them all?
I think the thing between all of these wines, each of them has something in common, and that is that they are really crafted with care, grown with care, and it's not irrespective of their price point, because there are some really different price points here, but mostly that they are delicious to drink. All of these would have a place on our wine lists, and I think that they all represent both their region, their variety, and their producer really well. The great thing about these is that they're all absolutely sensational, like world-class wines that stand up against anything that we could import, and I think it's really important to be proud of them. So this first one is a pretty exciting one.
I'm really excited to try this.
So good. So this is made by Arras. It's the E.J. Carr Late Disgorged Sparkling from 2004. And there are a number of sparkling wine producers that I really love in Australia, and this is certainly one of the most aspirational sparkling wines that we produce. Really the top of the tree for this producer.
Well, Ed is just so renowned. Everything that he produces is stunning. This is just benchmark, isn't it?
Absolutely benchmark.
It's the top of the top in terms of Australian sparkling. So
I think it's really fascinating because it's really challenging in Australia to perhaps age the wines with the yeast lees for as long as they do in some other countries, and to keep Australian sparkling wine affordable. And by sparkling wine, I'm not talking about things like Prosecco, which are maybe a little bit faster and easier to produce. I'm talking wines made in the style of champagne with the traditional method. So they do need to see some significant aging in contact with the yeast lees, with the yeast in the bottle, and then it has to go through another whole process of disgorgement and getting that yeast lees out. So this, I think, is particularly sensational. It's all from Tasmania, so Tasmanian fruit. And the thing that I love about it, it has this incredible line of acidity, really fresh and vibrant. It is the type of wine that is perfect as an aperitif. It really makes you hungry, but it also has the body, the concentration, the structure that takes it further into the meal and has a wonderful ability to pair with food. And if you've got an amazing array of Tasmanian seafood, then there's
wouldn't be a bad match, would it?
It's not a bad pairing, no. I think if you were comparing this to something that came from overseas, it does have this lovely sort of ripe golden fruit, this almost daffodil, daisy-like character, some white and yellow nectarine. But all of those fruits are quite bright and tart. They're not ripe and rich like you sometimes see in Australian sparkling wine. But I think that there's a ripeness of fruit that maybe would contrast to something that was grown really far north in Europe, whether that was Champagne or England or some of the other sparkling wine producing regions in France in particular.
The line of acidity is just it's so fresh and light. It's you very rarely get a bubbles like that has this really great line of acid that's so refreshing, but it's quite sort of delicate, almost ethereal in it, sort of the way it sort of goes across your palate.
The thing that I've always really loved about it is I love that Ed Carr puts his name on the label because he is such a respected name in sparkling wine, and it really does show that it's the epitome of their production. But when you taste a wine, you kind of run out of descriptors, run out of things to say. This is one of those wines where it's more about being balanced and seamless and having flow through the palate than it is about saying that tastes like nectarines, as I said, or it tastes like apples. It's not so much about that. It's more about this lovely, almost has like a mineral water like lightness to it, but then with so much flavour and intensity.
All right. Well, what have we got next?
What next? If you were going to say that Australia has a unique wine style, there's maybe a couple of things that you could put on the table. That could be South Australian Shiraz. Barossa Shiraz in particular has a very distinctive style. Coonawarra Cabernet, very distinctive. Yarra Valley Cabernet. But there are two wines in Australia, two wine styles that for me are truly unique because no one else in the world makes them like we do. One of those are the fortified wines that come out of Rutherglen, and the other is Hunter Valley Semillon. And it can be made in a diverse set of styles. In the Barossa, where they use a little bit of oak fermentation traditionally, in Western Australia, where it's so often blended with Sauvignon Blanc, as it is in France. But this is unique. Early picked, these like incredibly high acidity. I'm sure we'll see it when we have a look. Incredibly high acidity. But the thing that's striking for me is the ability to age. Even the colour of this wine, it's 7 years old. So this is the Tyrrell's Vat 1 Semillon from 2013.
It looks so young and fresh.
An absolute benchmark of the region and of Australian wine generally. But it could be 2018. It's so youthful, so sort of pale and has this lovely green tinge to it. And this one has so much ability to age in the bottle. Yeah. It is iconic. So I'm really excited to taste it.
No, so am I. I can't wait actually.
So much intensity. It's like really, really aromatic.
It is, isn't it?
And I love all that sort of lime leaf, fresh lime juice cordial, and that lovely herbaceous green tinge. It's not underripe, but it has this sort of leafy, slightly spicy character.
So stunning.
And there's a lovely sort of white floral. No, it's so complex, so much intensity, and you can just see how it's starting to develop those sort of hazelnut, roasted almond, maybe nougat-like characters. But
this is a baby, isn't it?
It's such a baby. It's 7 years old, and it's only just starting to produce some of those developed notes.
What is it about the Hunter as a region that produces such incredible wine? Because it's not just Semillon, beautiful Chardonnays, really incredible Shiraz. What are they doing up there?
It's really unique, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a combination of different things. They've got a great wine heritage, one of the older regions in Australia. But they have these sort of vineyards in riverbanks and in riverbeds, quite, a little bit of diversity of soil, some older vines, and some very, very talented winemakers. And there's so many benchmark producers from this region, but there's also, some emerging producers and some people who are trying to experiment and maybe look at the traditional Hunter style in a different way. So, the fact that this is a family-owned producer, they're making the benchmark wines in the region. It's a challenging vintage for the Hunter.
Yeah,
obviously with all the fires, there was a lot of smoke and it sat blanketed over the Hunter Valley for a long time.
Yeah.
So a lot of producers like Tyrrell's won't be releasing any wines in 2020. So happily we've got some aged examples to drink while we wait.
So delicious.
It's delicious.
All right.
Okay. It wouldn't be much of a conversation really about Australian wine if I didn't have Chardonnay. So this is the Fighting Gully Road Chardonnay from Beechworth from 2018. I love this producer. Incredible wines across the range, particularly exciting experiments with things like Sangiovese and some other varieties that you might not see as often, like Aglianico. I think they're really a standout producer of this site. Mark Walpole is the owner of Fighting Gully Road, and he is one of the great names of viticulture in Victoria. And this site, it's like on an escarpment in the south of Beechworth, so on the shale and mudstone soils, as opposed to the granite soils that are a little bit further north. And this, I think, is benchmark. This is really youthful. It's 2018, and you can see how pale it is in the glass. It's still really light.
Oh my gosh,
such balance. Mark makes the wines with Adrian Rodder, who also makes some fantastic Chardonnays of his own.
Stunning Chardonnays.
Really
incredible.
Ones to look for every year. And again, like I mentioned with the EJ car, it's a wine of balance.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that traditional, very ripe, sunny style. Even though 2018 is a warm vintage and a riper vintage, there's a real restraint to the nose, this lovely like white stone fruit, and a little bit of oak influence there, but it's spicy and savoury and lovely sort of fresh ground nutmeg.
It really makes you salivate.
Absolutely.
This is stunning.
There's a really nice stony, flinty character to the wine as well, which I really enjoy.
Sort of that white petal, white peach note, white nectarine.
And again, that really bright acidity.
Yes.
It's a hallmark of those first three wines, really, but I do love acidity, and I love the role that it can have in pairing with food and cleansing the palate, and it makes you hungry. So,
all right.
Moving to reds.
Reds. Fabulous.
Yeah, so this is the Yangara Old Vine Grenache from 2018, and I mentioned that I grew up not so far from McLaren Vale. So it's funny because when you grow up very familiar with a region, you maybe don't always appreciate how special it is. And I honestly think that McLaren Vale is one of the most exciting and dynamic regions in Australia. Not only is there a very distinctive style of red wine in particular, this is a predominantly red wine producing region, but there's also this next generation of incredibly dynamic, exciting producers, people who are happy to experiment, and as we'll talk about with the next wine, some emerging varieties as well. But if there's a grape variety that speaks of McLaren Vale, like any other, it's Grenache.
Why should people love Grenache so much?
Such an exciting variety. It's delicious. I think in Australia we're really fortunate to have some incredible old vines, and particularly in McLaren Vale and in the Barossa Valley, some incredibly old vines. And old vines really give this concentration and complexity of fruit. They're not so great in terms of yield, and they're a little bit more challenging to look after, but they certainly come up trumps with quality. I find Yangara a really exciting producer. They're one of the top producers of Grenache in McLaren Vale for me, and they really make these fresh, lively wines from a very warm climate. So I think that McLaren Vale, it is definitely really, really warm in the day. During the growing season, it can get really quite hot. But the thing that is a benefit for McLaren Vale is the fact that they're so close to the ocean. The vineyard area really hugs the ocean. So you get these afternoon breezes that come in and sort of refresh the vines and allow the grapes to retain some of their natural acidity. Growing up so close, I remember in the summer when it was so hot, and my mum used to come and open all of the windows and open up the house, and this gully breeze would come through, and so I think even for me it's quite visceral, this idea of the cooling of the afternoon breeze. Grenache is a variety that loves warm weather, it loves the sunshine, and even if you just look at where it comes from, originates in Spain, and then it travelled around the Mediterranean and ends up in the Rhone Valley, the southern Rhone Valley. They're regions that have some similarity to us in Australia. This warm weather, this Mediterranean climate in South Australia. So it's exciting to see how choosing a variety that suits your climate, even if it's a variety that's been there for a long time, produces wines that have that more natural feeling, that they have a more comfortable fit for the climate, rather than producing wines from a variety that really should be grown somewhere cooler.
Exactly. I really hope people get around Grenache a little bit more, because it's such a versatile grape. It makes an incredible spectrum of wine, and it suits an incredible spectrum of food.
And so many
why wouldn't
exciting producers.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at some of the more experimental producers like Brash Higgins, his Grenache is delicious. Some younger up-and-coming producers like Ministry of Clouds. The other benchmark producer of the region for Grenache for me is C Panel, and you can definitely get some of those wines at Vintage Cellars. And Steve is so concentrated on this place and making a wine that tastes like this vineyard, and these savoury wines that also have the natural ripeness and sweetness of the region. Is really exciting, but absolutely Yangara Old Vine Grenache is one to look out for.
Amazing. Cool. All right, what have we got next?
Okay, we're staying in. This is my natural bias coming through here.
Palate bias.
So next we're staying in McLaren Vale. This is Coriol Sangiovese from 2018. The Lloyd family have been really quite, almost quietly innovative in McLaren Vale, and they were one of the first, I think the first producer of Sangiovese in Australia.
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
I want to say that that's true.
Let's go with it for this. I'm sure we'll be fact checked afterwards.
Probably. So the Lloyd family really very passionate about these varieties. They make delicious Shiraz and classic varieties of the region, but I love this one. I also think it's
really
an incredible bargain.
It's a Barry bargain. I think for under $30, it's a good purchase.
Sangiovese is not a variety that you often see growing as close to the coast as this does. But this isn't Sangiovese trying to be Chianti or trying to be Brunello di Montalcino. This is Sangiovese that's grown in Australia. It's Australian Sangiovese, and it tastes like it. It's got all of those Sangiovese hallmarks, the like dried herbs, the turned red earth, the really great tannins that kind of creep up on you. There's a lovely stoniness to the wine. It's not just fruity and juicy that you might sometimes see from wines at this price point. I think it's wonderful, but it's got this core of ripe, plush, sort of raspberry and black cherry plum fruit that shows that it's Australian. It's that it's grown in a place with ample sun and clean air. It's I think it's really exciting.
This is amazing.
Doesn't it really smell like McLaren Vale though? It has that little sort of milk chocolate, that lovely ripe fruit. It's
It takes you back there. When the thing that strikes me in McLaren Vale are these beautiful sort of these flatlands, but then these stunning rolling hills. Gorgeous. And it just this rocky soil, this red rocky soil, and this
so diverse. They've mapped all the soils, and there's so many soil types, and I guess it shows that there can be that diversity of grape varieties in the region. It's the tannin that sells that for me. It just makes me so hungry.
It's
got
delicious.
This fine tannin, and the more you drink, the more you have like another little bit of tannin that layers and layers. It's definitely something that could, it deserves to be at the table.
It does, and it's a bargain. I actually can't get over what great value it is. It's one of those wines that, buy a case, don't buy a bottle. Buy a case, put it away, because it's an investment.
Yeah, it's absolutely delicious.
Amazing.
Great.
All right.
And then maybe counterintuitively to have this last grape variety after something a little bit more structured, but this is a little bit closer to home for me. So this is made by Lethbridge, and they're based in sort of the Geelong region, and a very exciting producer made by a very intelligent, astute winemaker. This is their entry-level Pinot Noir called Ménage Noir. And
you pronounce that better than me.
I'll just let it roll off the tongue and pretend that I speak French. It's really, really challenging to find an affordable Pinot Noir.
It is.
Really
it
challenging.
Really is.
And this, I think, is very, it has a reliability about it, which is not what I want to say, that, reliability is sometimes a little bit of.
Oh, look, sometimes you want to know that it's gonna perform.
But I don't know if I've ever tried this wine from a vintage that hasn't actually tasted delicious. So this is from 2019, incredibly youthful.
Yeah.
You know, again, we had this warmer vintage, but this is still quite modest in alcohol. It's got those lovely rose petal savoury notes that you want from Pinot Noir, just a little bit of oak influence.
A lot of sour cherry, that beautiful sort of...
And the rose petal, that sort of dried potpourri character. The thing that I like about it is that it really looks like the region, you know. Geelong produces these quite muscular wines sometimes, and they can handle being made in a more full-bodied style for Pinot Noir, you know, in comparison to if you were saying, looking at Macedon Ranges or something like that. But this always has such a lovely balance. This nice rose petal, rose water, red cherry fruit, a little bit of raspberry. But there's a nice sort of savoury stoniness underneath. It's delicious and a really great alternative to, you know, if you have a preference for a lighter wine, it's a really lovely wine to look at if you're a lover of things like Yarra Valley or Mornington Peninsula.
Amazing. We've had such a good lineup. Thank you so much for selecting them all.
Thank you.
I think we've had like a little tour around Australia and some of my favourite regions and styles. So thank you so much. If you want to buy any of these incredible wines, they're all on our Facebook. So have a look. And Leanne, thank you so much for having me here in your home.
Absolute pleasure.
Great.
It's always
Cheers.
a good thing. Cheers.